Mr. Chair.
Marama Davis. Son.
Tēnā koe te mangai o te whare. Kia ora koutou. Ai ko Marama Davis an tika tau. Kia ora.
Sorry.
Taranaki tūturu, tēnā koutou anō, koutou ko Taranaki whānui hoki. Kia ora. I want to thank the Minister, Chris Finlayson, in his initial final reading, at the start of his kōrero, in the final reading of the Taranaki iwi Claims Settlement Bill, where he acknowledged fully, I felt, I think you can never acknowledge fully the injustice, including what happened at Parihaka, but where he put into the record of the House the scorched earth, confiscation of land, the invasion of Parihaka, and the taking of those tupuna down to the south without trial, some of them never returning. And particularly, as a wahine, I want to acknowledge the Minister for reminding us of the assault that those wahine faced. And I cannot stand here without emphasising and acknowledging indeed the deep takahi of the mana of wahine that happens when that happens. And particularly as I was removed from this house within my first 5 days of standing in it, for wanting to maintain a voice to acknowledge the mamae of survivors, wahine survivors of assault. So I do thank the Minister for putting into the record and actually saying those words, and I stand here to recall those wahine in that moment, in those moments. And it is the assaults that we want to continue to speak out against and not isolate our people who have gone through those similar assaults. And I will stand in this house today to recall those wahine and all of the whānau of Taranaki tūturu, Taranaki whānui, and descendants of Parihaka. Kia ora. I want to pick up again the issue of representation. I listened to my colleague Adrian Rurawhi when he distinguished that the settlement has actually resulted in an outcome of provision for iwi representation, but on the committees, the Taranaki Regional Council's Policy Planning Committee and the Consents and Regulatory Committee. And I look forward in particular to the representation, the Taranaki representation on the Consents and Regulatory Committee, on both of those committees, because the representation, the honouring of te tiriti and the representation of mana whenua in making decisions is at its heart about upholding the kaitiaki responsibilities to care for our people and our land. So we need to pull the narrative away from, oh, they get a seat here and they get a seat there. It is not the point. The point is, and this is why whether it is representation on committees or at governance level, is not in itself the outcome. The outcome, as it always was supposed to be, was to address the structural injustices that prevented mana whenua from engaging in those decisions in the first place. So it's not giving something, it's returning something that was stolen. It is returning the representation at that decision-making level that was stolen. So here, my Ngāti Hene Whanaunga and I will tautohe that forever and a day on our differing positions when it comes to representation and mana whenua upholding their kaitiaki responsibilities to ensure that our whenua, our wai, our tamariki and mokopuna for generations to come can benefit, can survive, can uphold the whakapapa of Taranaki, and for that to happen, as our tūpuna always wanted when they envisioned Te Tiriti o Waitangi, we need to have our people in those places of making decisions. And that has to be guaranteed. And when we are a minority in Aotearoa, in a democracy, then we need those guarantees. And the guarantee of that representation will benefit all citizens, all people of Aotearoa, whether you are Māori or not. That is the point of this, what was fought for in this settlement, in Ngā Ruahine, and why the Green Party, Catherine Delahunty and Jan Logie, took part in the hikoi with Andrew Judd and with all the people to arrive at Parihaka to stand for that representation and upholding the kaitiaki responsibility. So I want to be very clear about where I and the Green Party stand on that outcome of representation. I cannot stand in this House without also acknowledging Te Miringa Hohaia, a man who I have heard much about, who I never had the honour of meeting myself, but whose whānau and tamariki and descendants I have the privilege of being involved in, and who I will say are unsure whether or not he would have fully agreed to the settlement that we are talking of today, and that all through all the settlements, that is again a recurring thing. Nevertheless, we acknowledge those. We acknowledge those differing voices. We acknowledge the hard work, the challenges placed upon these settlement processes by the Crown. Tēnā koe te miringa. I want to acknowledge the hard work in the ratification process that happened. And I note that the deed of settlement was initialed in July, and then there followed numerous ratification hui and ballot. And I want to acknowledge Te Kāhui o Taranaki Trust as Taranaki iwi's post-settlement entity for the democratic process for passing the ratification, and in particular getting the views of those beyond the mandated negotiators. It is a trying process to try and get any sort of mandate and consensus. I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge the particular efforts in this case that happened, and the difficulty, the ongoing difficulty, and that difficulty doesn't stop here. There will be the ongoing conversations about the decisions that are made over certain awa, whenua, papakainga. What do we involve ourselves? What business ventures do we uphold? All of that will continue to be an ongoing conversation, and I wish Taranaki all the luck in maintaining that dialogue and reaching beyond just the few voices that is always easier to progress those kōrero with. Tēnā koutou. Just in my last bit, I am pleased. Taranaki maunga is such a tūpuna, it deserves its own whole process. I'm pleased that the Minister, Finlayson, has indeed signalled his commitment for that to come up next. And again, Parihaka and the injustice of the story too deserves its own entire settlement process. Reconciliation process. So I want to put on record that we are pleased. Those will be hard, but for one of the things that this process has done, that Te Tiriti settlement deeds have done, is it has brought these stories to the fore for a lot of us who never knew. A lot of us. I'm talking even about my own iwi. And the tribunal hearings have brought so much of that to the fore to benefit all of us, so that we have a bit of a better understanding about what has happened, and that needs to continue. And that needs to continue, and that, so that as I sum up, for all of the Taranaki iwi settlements that have happened this morning, Ngā Ruahine, Te Atiawa, Taranaki Tūturu, this has been an incredibly humbling position today to stand here with this enormous responsibility to try and uphold the mana with which you have all held yourselves throughout this process. Kia kaha nō reira, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kia koutou I Wainganui, I roto I tēnei whare, ko tai mai koutou ki tō whenua, anō reira, tēnā koutou huri noa, kia ora tātou katoa.
E te mana whakawā.